January 1942, North Atlantic. At 2 a.m., convoy, 2 tankers, and 6 freighters escorted by a destroyer and a corvette moves west through heavy seas, hoping the night will hide them. But in 2 minutes, 2 German U-boats break the surface and open fire with torpedoes and deck guns. Flames spread fast. Men jump into burning water. Within 40 minutes, the convoy is shattered and sinking. U-boats prowl the American coast like wolves in a stockyard. German Admiral Karl Donitz reads the tonnage reports and smiles in a thin way. In January, U-boats sink 146,000 tons. In February, 318,000. In March, 532,000. The mathematics are simple and fatal. Britain eats because U.S. ships reach Liverpool. If the ships don't, Britain starves. At Naval Air Station Lakehurst, New Jersey, Lieutenant Commander Ira Red Halvorson pins a chart to a wall with a marlin spike. Red lines loop coastal convoys like tourniquets. The room smells of coffee and damp wool. A young radar officer, Ensign Paul Merriweather, points at a symbol nobody has taken seriously since 1929. An airship silhouette. "We have hangars," he says. "We have helium. We have crews who can fly the coastal stations tomorrow. And the U-boats can't dive from a horizon they can't reach." Airships? The Germans laugh when they hear it. They decommissioned their Zeppelins after 1918 as quaint, vulnerable relics. What can a bag of gas do against a steel shark? In Berlin, a staff officer snorts. "Schwimmende Augen, floating eyes," he writes in a margin. A joke. He notes that airships are slow, unarmored, and die easily to flak. He files the memo and goes to lunch. At Lakehurst, the joke takes shape in aluminum rings and gray fabric. K-class patrol ships K3, K14, K32 inflate on the floor like whales coming alive. 2 Pratt & Whitneys hang from the control car, fuel enough for a day and a night aloft. Inside the car, an ASV radar set that hums like a beehive, a plotting table, a magnetic anomaly detector rig that reads the sea like Braille, and racks for 4 325-pound depth charges, plus stub pylons for 5-inch rockets. Top speed? Maybe 60 knots with a tailwind. Endurance? 20, 30 hours. If the weather's steady and the crew remembers to eat, they don't need speed. They need to be there. April 1942. Sunrise off Jacksonville. K-18 lifts at 0430 from NAS Richmond, Florida, heavy with fuel, crewed by Lieutenant Halvorson, Merriweather on radar, and 4 enlisted men: engineer, rigger, ordnanceman, radio man. Above a glass sea they climb to 1,000 feet, then settle to 200 where radar reflections are clean and the MAD can taste metal. Below them, convoy KS-123 creeps north, tiny wakes like chalk scratches. The blimp slides a lazy racetrack over the formation, a mother hen with helium in her lungs. At 0713 the scope blooms a stubby, moving spike 5 miles off the starboard quarter of Times SS Haviland *. Merriweather calls the bearing Halvorson Banks, and the shadow below thickens into a pale oval barely underwater, a periscope trace drawing a straight line for the convoy's heart. Halvorson clicks the radio once, twice prearranged code to preserve silence, then pushes the nose down till spray flecks the windscreen. The ordnanceman thumbs safeties off the shackles. Depth charges roll and thump into the wake like iron barrels, spaced with a farmer's care. The blimp rides its own blast like a boat over wake. A white boil rises, then a brown stain, then nothing. The convoy keeps moving, unmolested. The destroyer turns for the datum, foams in, drops her pattern, and circles like a dog around a gopher hole. Nobody on the bridge of Times Haviland Times sees an airplane. Nobody hears a carrier overhead. They hear a distant pop, smell cordite on a damp wind, and watch the floating eye hang there for another 8 hours while the horizon stays empty of periscopes. That night, a boatswain writes in the log, "Escort by K-ship. No contacts. Crew slept." It is the first quiet line those men have written in months. May 1942. The U-boat war in the Atlantic has reached its fever pitch. 44 merchantmen lost in a single week. Oil slicks stretch for miles. Fires burn bright enough that coastal towns dim their lights. American newspapers call it Torpedo Junction. Crews joke darkly that you can walk from Hatteras to Halifax on lifeboats alone. The Navy needs an answer yesterday, and somehow, impossibly, that answer floats. By early May, 12 K-class airships are operational from Lakehurst to Key West. They fly under the command of Blimp Squadron 14, a name that sounds like a punchline until you see their patrol grid. Each K-ship covers a 300-mile arc, flying so low that deckhands on merchantmen can wave to them. They can spot a periscope from 3 miles away in daylight, a diesel exhaust slick from 10 at dawn. On radar, a surfaced submarine is a finger of light crawling against a static sea. The blimps don't kill fast, but they make killing impossible. The Germans notice. Donitz's signals officers start flagging strange gaps in contact reports. In sectors patrolled by American Luftschiffe, radio check-ins stop coming. Boats vanish. Not destroyed, but silenced. Submerged for days. Engines off. Batteries bleeding dry. A U-boat that hides can't hunt. The Atlantic is wide, but even a few dozen blimps make it feel small. On June 9th, U-134 surfaces 80 miles east of Savannah to recharge batteries. The sea's calm, the air thick as wool. The watch officer scans the horizon. Nothing. The lookouts smoke. Above them, at 2,000 feet, K-9 drifts unseen, radar screen glowing faint. Lieutenant Ye Merriweather, now seasoned from 6 patrols, adjusts the gain until a pale blip stabilizes. Range: 5 miles. Bearing: due west. Closing. He kills the navigation lights. The engines throttle back to idle. The airship becomes a ghost. Below, the U-boat captain orders ventilation hatches opened. The smell of fuel and metal floods upward. 2 men climb topside to scrub the deck gun of salt. Merriweather watches through binoculars, steady hands, measuring the U-boat's drift. At 1,500 yards, Halvorsen gives the nod. The ordnanceman arms 2 depth charges, set to 50 feet. They drop like coins into dark water. Seconds stretch. The first blast lifts the U-boat's stern clear of the sea. The second hits amidships. A column of foam taller than the periscope rises, then collapses. The blimp banks hard to port, cameras rolling. The U-boat doesn't sink outright, it wallows, stern low, smoke pouring from aft vents. K-9 calls destroyer USS Cushing by radio. It takes her an hour to arrive. By the time the destroyer's crew hauls survivors from the water, half are dead from concussion. The rest talk too freely under morphine. No warning, one says. We saw nothing, just sky. It's the first confirmed kill by an American airship in history. Naval Intelligence Summary 42 to 317 logs it dryly. Contact by K-9. Attack successful. U-boat destroyed. Convoy continued unmolested. The psychological effect is bigger than the kill itself. That night, the Kriegsmarine's weather network intercepts American broadcasts praising the ghost balloons of the U.S. Navy. Donitz dismisses it as propaganda, but his captains don't. Patrol logs start showing notes like, "Avoid shallows near Florida. Air threat continuous. Unseen aircraft, immediate dive." A weapon doesn't need to kill to win, it just needs to change behavior. June turns to July. The K-ships expand their reach, patrolling out of Guantanamo Bay, Trinidad, and Lajes Field in the Azores. Each carries radar now upgraded to ASG-2, sensitive enough to pick up a submarine's snorkel at 12 miles. They hunt not with speed but patience. A K-blimp can stay on station for 24 hours, circling above convoys so slowly that time itself seems to hold its breath. Convoy PQ-127, bound for Liverpool, runs into trouble north of Bermuda on July 18. Two U-boats, U-221 and U-617, coordinate an ambush from opposite bearings. It should be a massacre. The night's clear, moon half full. The Germans dive to periscope depth, waiting for the merchant silhouettes to cross their firing arcs. Then, K-21 shows up. The airship doesn't dive, doesn't strafe. It just appears out of the dark, searchlights sweeping in slow arcs across the waves. For the U-boats, it's a nightmare. They can't tell if it's armed, if destroyers are behind it, if its radar's locked on. Both captains abort, dive deep, and wait out the light. The convoy sails through untouched. The Blimp's log reads like a ghost story. 2 contacts submerged, no torpedoes fired, convoy safe. By August, the results are visible in tonnage graphs back in Washington. Sinkings along the U.S. coast drop by half. In zones covered by airships, losses approach 0. Admiral King, who once called the K-ships toys for fair weather, now signs orders for 50 more. The Navy shifts helium reserves from the Army to blimp production. NAS Lakehurst runs day and night. The German reaction is disbelief, turning to dread. Der Spiegel later describes it: invisible aircraft that did not leave, that we could not shake. They hovered and watched. They made the ocean small. U-boat captains begin referring to them by a single nickname, whispered over encrypted radio: Die Augen, the eyes. And by the summer of 1943, wherever the eyes appear, U-boats vanish. September 1942. The Atlantic is still vast, but for the first time since the war began, the U-boat captains start to feel hunted. The ocean that had once felt like sanctuary now feels exposed. Every white cap could be a periscope, every cloud a trap. Above it all, the K-class blimps drift in silence, gray outlines against gray sky, watching, waiting. U-boat command begins to change tactics. Instead of single strikes near the coast, Dönitz orders his boats to form rudal wolfpacks, operating far out in mid-Atlantic, beyond the range of land-based aircraft. 20 submarines coordinating through radio to overwhelm a convoy's defenses. The idea is sound. The timing is perfect. The execution, however, collides with a new American experiment. At NAS South Weymouth, Massachusetts, Lieutenant Commander Halvorsen briefs his crew over a crude chalk map of the central Atlantic. 2 convoys, HX-212 from Halifax and On 137 from Liverpool, are due to cross paths around latitude 48 degrees N. Intelligence suspects a wolfpack, codenamed Vorwärts, operating there. Halvorsen's orders: keep them scared, keep them down. By now, the K-ships aren't just radar platforms, they're miniature command posts. Each carries VHF relay sets, linking them to destroyers hundreds of miles away. And their radar operators have learned to read the ocean the way hunters read tracks. A U-boat at periscope depth leaves a faint wake on radar, a hair-thin ghost line that pulses with the rhythm of waves. It's barely visible, but Merriweather can see it. There, he says, tapping the green screen with a pencil. Bearing 072. Moving parallel to convoy course. K-32 drops altitude to 300 feet, engines throttled low. Below, the convoy plows east 40 cargo ships in tight columns, plumes of smoke merging into a gray ribbon. The blimp begins to orbit, matching the U-boat's course. For an hour, the dance continues, one crawling beneath the sea, the other crawling above it. Then, a flicker. The U-boat surfaces briefly to send a radio burst. That's all Merriweather needs. Got him. 10 miles off the beam. The first contact report goes out in code. Blimp sighted submarine, grid square Charlie 3. Depth charges expended. Within 40 minutes, destroyer USS Renshaw is racing to the spot, guided by the airship's beacon. The U-boat dives deep, trying to escape, but the blimp hovers overhead like a judgment that never leaves. Circle of death, one sailor calls it later. The Renshaw's sonar pings once, twice, then a dull echo metal, turning. The destroyer drops her pattern. The water erupts, the sea lifts, and when it settles there's only a slick of oil. K-32 photographs it all. Back at Lakehurst, analysts count the seconds between detonation and surfacing bubbles. They estimate the boat broke in half at 180 feet. One blimp and one destroyer, an improbable partnership, had just ended a wolfpacks attack before it began. Donitz's response is predictable. He orders his captains to avoid surface transmissions whenever blimps are reported. No radio, no coordination, no wolfpack. The Germans start hunting blind. They call it fighting in the fog. But the airships keep adapting too. By October, K-ships are experimenting with LORAN, the new long-range navigation system that lets them patrol hundreds of miles from shore without losing bearings. The endurance flights get longer, 20 hours, 25, even 30. Crews sleep in shifts, heating coffee on engine manifolds, marking contacts with grease pencils on plexiglass. The blimps become airborne sentinels, each one guarding a convoy's sky. The enemy calls them lighters, as in cigarette lighters, small, weak, disposable. But every captain who sees one learns otherwise. The K-ships rarely kill directly. What they do is worse. They erase opportunity. A U-boat commander needs to surface, to breathe, to recharge, to navigate, to attack. A blimp in the sky means death on the surface. So they dive deeper, stay longer, run their batteries flat. When they surface again, hours later, they're no longer hunters. They're drowning machines, short on oxygen, blind, and exhausted. In Berlin, Dönitz receives a report from U-178's captain after a failed patrol. Engaged no ships. Airship patrol continuous. Forced submerged for 36 hours. Batteries exhausted. Crew ill. He writes one word in the margin, verflucht, cursed. That's when the Germans start trying countermeasures. They fit some U-boats with flak guns, twin 20mm, cannons, and even 37mm mounts on their decks, hoping to fight the airships off. The first encounter happens on October 21st, 1942. K-24, patrolling south of Trinidad, spots U-174, surfacing to attack a tanker. The blimp swoops in, rockets armed. The U-boat opens fire, shells bursting in black puffs around the gondola. 2 hit. The envelope leaks helium, but holds. The crew stays steady. They dive to 50 feet, drop 2 charges, and pull away smoking but alive. Hours later, a destroyer follows their trail to a patch of burning oil. The Germans write home that they downed an airship. They didn't. K-24 limps back to Trinidad with holes patched in silver tape and victory photos in her camera bay. The Navy quietly upgrades all K-ships with Kevlar-coated envelopes, primitive armor, against flak fragments. By the end of 1942, the Atlantic statistics tell the story. Merchant sinkings east of Bermuda are down 70%. Convoy arrivals are up. In every sector where K-ships patrol, the line graphs bend upward. In Washington, Admiral King, once skeptical, now converted, authorizes an expansion of the fleet to 134 airships. He calls them the Silent Fleet. And for the men who crew them, the ocean starts to sound different. Less like doom, more like duty. The K-ships don't roar. They hum. And the hum means safety. Above convoys, the sound is faint, but constant, a whisper that says, "We're watching." January 1943. The Atlantic winter comes in black and white gray water, white caps, no horizon, just a single, endless blur of storm. It's the kind of weather that breaks men, bends steel, and buries wrecks so deep they never send up oil. The Germans think it's their season again. Bad weather means no patrol planes, no radar coverage, No escorts close enough to matter. For 3 months, the U-boats have been planning their comeback, but they've forgotten about the one aircraft that doesn't care about weather. At NAS Lakehurst, the K-ships rise even when everything else is grounded. Their engines cough steam into the frozen air. Their crews haul aboard thermoses of coffee, wool blankets, and boxes of depth charges rimed with frost. The briefings are short. Convoy HX 219 eastbound. Wolfpack expected mid-Atlantic. Maintain contact. Report every 2 hours. The weather forecast reads simply, severe. K-47 lifts at 0430, winds 40 knots, waves like mountains, visibility less than a mile. The airship lurches as gusts catch her envelope. Lieutenant Halverson's replacement, a hard-faced young officer named Commander Thomas F. Brackett, keeps his hands steady on the yoke. "We stay up," he says flatly. "If we can see a whitecap, we can see a periscope." At 0800, radar catches a flicker through the static, something moving slow against the wind, too steady to be a wave. "Contact," Merriweather mutters. 5 miles, bearing 217. The blimp banks through sleet, engines straining. Below, the gray water opens and closes like jaws. For a moment, nothing, then a shape slides up through the spray. Conning tower. A U-boat, surfaced to charge in heavy seas, thinking no one's watching. Brackett leans over the intercom. "We're dropping fast. Strap in." The airship dives, envelope shuddering, engines screaming against wind shear. They pass 500 feet, then 200. The altimeter needle shaking. The ordnanceman releases 2 depth charges at point-blank range. They hit the water 30 yards off the U-boat's beam, fuse set for 25 feet. The explosions look small against the storm, but a U-boat's skin doesn't care about scale. The second blast lifts the boat's stern clear of the sea. When it settles, the conning tower is gone. The periscope bends like a straw. The ocean closes. For 2 days afterward, the convoy steams, without a single torpedo fired. HX 219 arrives intact. The log from K-47 reads simply, "No survivors observed." It's not just weather that's turning. It's the war itself. By spring 1943, the K-ships are everywhere, escorting every eastbound convoy out of Norfolk, Guantanamo, Trinidad, and Recife. They fly in pairs now, overlapping their patrol arcs like linked chains. The Germans can't find an angle. Every time a U-boat surfaces, somewhere a blimp is already watching. At Lorient, Donitz's staff listens to a new kind of radio report. Sighted airship at dawn. Remained overhead until nightfall. Unable to surface. One captain claims he spent 39 hours submerged while a blimp hovered above. Its radar ping sweeping like a metronome. His batteries failed. His crew passed out from CO2 buildup. When he finally surfaced at night to ventilate, the airship was still there, just a gray outline against the moon. Lights dimmed, waiting. It's not just the patrols. The technology behind them is evolving. The Navy's Bureau of Aeronautics installs magnetic anomaly detection gear, MAD, on every K-ship. It's primitive, but it can sense a submarine's hull from 400 feet above the sea. The crews start calling it the ghost detector. When the needle twitches, they drop charges and don't wait for confirmation. Half the kills in 1943 come from mad hits, not radar. One of those comes on May 17, 1943, convoy GAT 62, south of Bermuda. K-58 is patrolling at 300 feet when the mad needle jumps. No radar contact, no periscope. Just a magnetic pulse, gone as quickly as it came. "Drop now," says Brackett. 2 charges fall. The sea erupts. A moment later, a brown slick breaks the surface. Oil, wood, bits of cork insulation. The crew doesn't cheer. They just circle, silent, until the slick spreads wide enough for the destroyer USS Dahlgren to arrive. Another boat gone. No survivors. The Navy's statistics people start using new language. They don't call them blimps anymore. They call them airborne submarine hunters. The term fits. In the first 6 months of 1,943, 89% of convoys under K-ship escort reach port without loss. Where the blimps fly, U-boats die or dive until they're useless. The Germans finally react. They deploy U-flak boats, modified submarines, with 4-barrel 20mm cannons meant to ambush airships. On July 18th, U-441 surfaces north of the Azores and opens fire on K-74. The first bursts hit the gondola, riddling the envelope. K-74 drops smoke flares, dives lower, and releases her last pair of depth charges, almost directly on top of the submarine. The explosions hammer both vessels. The U-boat's flak guns vanish in spray. The blimp limps back to base with half its gas gone and one engine out. It's the only time a K-ship is shot down in the entire war. And even then, her crew survives. The Germans don't. By August, Dönitz pulls every flak-armed submarine from service. Too dangerous, his report reads. They invite attack from every direction. That autumn, the Atlantic grows quieter. Merchantmen still die, but not like before. Convoys move without panic, their wakes no longer trailing oil and bodies. A single gray dot in the sky now carries the weight of an entire fleet's safety. Sailors start writing about it in letters home. There's a blimp with us today. We'll be fine. The German Navy no longer jokes about floating eyes. The phrase changes meaning. In coded U-boat transmissions, Die Augen is no longer mockery. It's warning. It means, don't surface. Don't breathe. They're watching. Autumn 1943. The balance has shifted. What was once a slaughterhouse of merchant shipping has become, for the first time, a battlefield that favors the hunted. The Atlantic, cold, gray, endless, now belongs not to the predators beneath it, but to the quiet watchers above. At dusk on September 9th, convoy NG 376, 42 ships from New Orleans to Gibraltar, runs south of the Azores, under escort from 4 destroyers and 1 K-ship K-112, based out of Lajes Field. The convoy's commander, Captain Donald Farrow, fictional, had protested the assignment. A blimp? Sir, we're fighting U-boats, not seagulls. He changes his mind before dawn. At 0240 hours, the destroyer USS Hughes picks up a faint sonar contact, then loses it. Seconds later, K-112's radar operator calls down. Wake line, 2 miles east of convoy. Submarine heading 045. The blimp banks through cloud, throttles back, and starts dropping flares, slow-burn magnesium that turns the sea white as daylight. The U-boat captain, thinking himself unseen, finds his entire world illuminated. K-112 releases 4 depth charges in a perfect diamond around the target. The blasts lift the submarine clear of the water, flipping it almost vertical. By the time Hughes arrives, all that remains is an oil slick. The merchant crews below cheer the way soldiers cheer artillery that finally lands on the right grid square. It's the 13th confirmed kill by a K-ship that year. The U-boat menace isn't over, but the mystique is gone. German captains, once swaggering, now write log entries that sound like confessions. Cannot surface for 36 hours. Aircraft patrol constant. Batteries at 12%. Morale poor. The K-ships don't destroy with force, they destroy with fatigue. The Germans still try to adapt. They begin surfacing only at night, when moonlight is thin and clouds are thick. The Americans counter with radar tuned to pick up periscope wakes and snorkel reflections. Then they add infrared cameras, primitive, unreliable, but capable of catching the heat signature of a surface diesel exhaust against a cold sea. The blimps no longer just patrol, they stalk. October 22nd, 1943, U-743, fictional, lurks 200 miles west of the Canaries, waiting for convoy UGS-27. It surfaces after sunset to recharge batteries. On radar, the air is clean, no planes. The captain lights a cigarette and orders ventilation hatches open. He doesn't see K-85 circling 2,000 feet above, engines throttled to idle. The airship's radar operator whispers, "Target beneath us, bearing steady." Lieutenant Commander Brackett gives a single order. Lights off. All hands quiet. The blimp slides down through cloud until its shadow merges with the night sea. At 300 feet, the MAD needle spikes. "Metal!" yells the operator. The ordnanceman trips the release. 2 depth charges fall clean and vanish into the dark. The ocean erupts. A shockwave punches through the gondola hard enough to make instruments rattle. Then, silence. The blimp circles, watching as air bubbles and oil rise like smoke from a candle. Brackett radios only one word: done. Back in Germany, Donitz's analysts can't explain the losses. Submarines disappearing in calm seas, no distress signals, no aircraft reported. Some commanders insist they're being attacked by radar-invisible planes. Others think the Allies have built underwater mines that drift. They never suspect that the killers are slow, visible, and floating right above them. By December, the U-boat force is bleeding faster than Berlin can replace it. 39 submarines lost in 6 weeks, half of them in sectors patrolled by K-ships. The Atlantic Fleet's own numbers are staggering. 0 merchant losses in any convoy under airship escort. None. The blimp's influence spreads beyond their patrol zones. American destroyers learn to home in on their radar beacons. British escorts coordinate through Loran fixes provided by K-ships thousands of miles away. Even the Canadians, long skeptical, begin building their own class airships modeled on the K's gondola design. The slowest aircraft on the ocean has become the nervous system of an entire anti-submarine war.